I am Gianna Tarner, a 24-year-old illustrator who makes a living from her art. I got married less than a year ago, and my relationship with my husband, Jackson, was stable and full of love despite the strength of our marriage. We have recently faced a complicated situation with my sister. My sister tried to get in the way of our relationship and keep Jackson away from me. She even married him at a wedding to which he invited me. Maybe she was trying to make me jealous, but I decided to take the situation calmly. I even told my mother that I would attend the wedding and asked her to help make it a pleasant celebration. Although my parents were usually kind and avoided getting angry, my sister's behavior had brought them to a point of exasperation. We decided to attend the wedding with forced smiles, but unfortunately, the occasion turned out to be a disaster. Instead of a happy and joyful celebration, we faced accusations and tensions. Jackson and I met through a friend and immediately started dating. He proposed to me in a restaurant with beautiful nighttime views. Our wedding was full of happiness, surrounded by family and friends. One day, I realized that Jackson had forgotten his phone in the living room. I picked it up and brought it to him, saying, "Jackson, you forgot your phone." He seemed a little nervous when he picked it up and quickly thanked me before rushing out the door. His sudden pleasantness left me uneasy, and that feeling marked the beginning of my suspicions. From that day on, he began to carry his cell phone with him everywhere, even at home. It seemed strange to me, but I couldn't imagine that he would cheat on me. We got along well without any major problems, so I tried to convince myself that everything was fine. However, my confidence did not last long. As I scrolled through the phone, I saw a notification. It was an email from an unknown address saying, "Hello, long time no see, how are you?" It seemed like it could be from someone I knew, but I had heard of this phase in which people pretend to be friends, so I decided to ignore it. But then I received another message. "Hey, don't ignore me. I can see that you read it. Ignoring your sister, that's how you always are. So bad." Right after I closed my phone, it rang, and it was another message from the same unknown sender calling me your sister. I actually have a sister named Eliana, but she is known for causing trouble in various ways. Eliana had a history of causing trouble, especially with money. She would often borrow money from her friends and then not pay them back, leaving my parents and me to take care of it. She liked men who already had partners, whether they were friends or family. She didn't care about causing tensions between people. She only looked out for what she wanted. Because of her behavior, I had cut ties with Eliana since she left home. So when I received a message with the words "sister" on my phone, I felt uncomfortable. I debated whether to respond or not, but in the end, I decided to ignore it. Whether it was from Eliana or someone pretending to be her, I didn't want to deal with it. However, the messages kept coming until I finally opened one to block the sender. What I saw surprised me. It was a message from her saying that Jackson was now hers and that I should hurry up and get a divorce. There was even a photo of Jackson and her together as proof. I didn't need any further confirmation. I knew it was true. I sat there dizzy with shock and disbelief. After Eliana's message, Jackson never came home. The only thing I received was some divorce papers filled out by him. My attempts to contact him were met with silence. Losing my husband so suddenly left me devastated, hungry, and emotionally fragile. I cried for days. When I finally calmed down a little, I decided to contact Eliana. "What do you want? Let me talk to Jackson," I said. "You've been ignoring me for so long, and now you contact me without even saying hello or apologizing," she replied. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Excuse me? You should be the one to apologize. Send Jackson back home for now." "No way. He doesn't want to come back. He says he loves me more than he ever loved you. And why should I apologize? It's your fault for not being able to keep him." It didn't matter what she said. If he didn't listen to me, I already felt terrible. Mentally too exhausted to worry or think anymore, I realized there was no point in continuing to argue. Holding on would only make things worse. If you're going to get angry with someone, get angry at your own lack of charm, loser, she spat. After that conversation, I turned off the phone. I was done dealing with Eliana and had lost all affection because I had chosen her before. Before I knew it, I had signed the divorce papers, and just like that, my once happy marriage was over. My life became a disaster after that, perhaps due to the emotional damage. I had a hard time eating and felt more tired than normal. I seemed so exhausted that my co-workers began to worry. Despite trying to reassure them with a smile, I felt like my body and mind were reaching their limits. In the end, I fainted at work and woke up in the emergency room. My parents and a close colleague were by my side. "Gianna, do you recognize me?" they asked. Their voices brought me back to reality. Looking around, I realized that I was in the hospital. Remembering what had happened, I said, "I fainted, right?" My father sighed with relief. "We were very worried when they called from the hospital. Are you working too much?" he asked. But deep down, he knew it was anguish. "Jackson, Eliana, maybe you're murmuring," I said, clearly worried. "Let's make sure." I ended up crying while I explained to them, realizing that I had reached my breaking point without realizing it. I thought I could do anything, but it turns out that I didn't understand myself as well as I thought. While I was trying to laugh, my mother squeezed my hand tightly. I had no idea what was going on. "Why didn't you tell us before?" "This is the first time I've heard about the divorce," my mother said. "I'm sorry to say this in front of you, Mom, but Eliana has gone crazy. I can't believe it," I replied. They both expressed their anger toward Eliana, and I realized they were really worried about me. I didn't want to cause problems or worry in Jackson, so I tried to make light of the situation. I felt embarrassed, and a part of me believed that what Eliana had said could be true. Maybe it was my fault for not being more attractive. "Nonsense. What are you talking about? It's clear that you and Eliana are the wrong ones here. Nora is right. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm so sorry," they both said, looking like they were about to cry. I regretted not trusting the people around me more. My mother suggested that I come home for a while, considering my mental and physical state, and then the doctor also recommended rest. Nora took care of the paperwork at work with my medical certificate. When my father returned with drinks and found out that I was resting at home, he immediately agreed that it was a good idea. Nora managed to explain everything to my workplace, and in HR, they assured me I have a lot of paid time saved up. So take your time off to rest after thanking her. Nora assured me that she would be by my side and to always lean on her. I needed it. The next few days, I stayed at my parents' house. Nora came to visit me from time to time, and I could feel my mind and body recovering little by little. I realized that it was not healthy to keep everything inside. Today, while Nora and I were enjoying a cake prepared by my mother, my cell phone rang, waking me up. My curiosity piqued. I grabbed it, and my heart raced. "Hello? How are you? I thought you would be wondering about us, so reaching out to you," said Eliana, whom I hadn't spoken to since the incident. I regretted having let my guard down and looking at my phone. Nora noticed the change in my expression. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" "Yes, I'm okay," I responded, but it was clear that something was wrong. Nora asked me if she could see my phone. I didn't want to worry her, but I had just realized that bottling things up wasn't helpful. So I nodded and handed her the phone. Nora was perplexed as she read the message. "What is this? She's looking for a fight. It's Allie, right?" I nodded and closed the phone. "Ignore her. Actually, let's block her. There's no point in dealing with someone like that," he suggested. And I agreed. opening the phone to block Eliana. Just then, another message came from Eliana. We have been living together without any problems since then, and guess what? I got pregnant. You are probably thinking, but no, Jackson and I started our relationship 6 months ago. The word pregnancy made time stop for me. We had been trying to conceive during our marriage. It would be great if we could have our baby soon, we used to say. Reading this message hurt me deeply. Tears came to my eyes, and Nora, seeing me cry, took the phone from my hand. After reading the message, she shouted, "I can't believe it, I'm so angry I could explode. We should send them." I was thinking of suing when I received the message, but now I didn't have the strength or will to do it. "I don't want to continue with this," I murmured, and Nora calmed down. "Sorry, I was too upset. You're right, it's better not to get involved." Nora gave me a comforting massage on my back, and I cried a little more. Then my mother came into the living room and saw what had happened. "Hello, Gianna. I haven't told you yet." "Father." I understood what he meant. I knew this would make my father angry, but I think it's time to tell him. My mother's solemn words impacted me deeply, and I took a moment to think. I too think it's time to talk about it. This is too much, I concluded. Nora's words convinced me too, so I decided to let my mother talk to him. My mother said she would talk about it, so I decided to leave it to her. When Nora went home and it got dark, my father came back from work. He said it smelled good in the house, and he asked what's for dinner. I welcomed him home, and he seemed happier since I came back. Mom said that Dad's mood had improved and that he was glad I was back. His words made me very happy knowing that I had a place to feel calm. But today, Mom seemed serious when I was talking to Dad. She said they needed to discuss something important, and Dad understood. So, Dad mentioned that it was about me, and I could see kindness in her eyes that almost made me cry. After explaining everything to Dad, he seemed calm, but a little angry. He told me not to block him yet, although I didn't have to read his messages. He must have had his reasons. Mom used to follow Dad's advice in situations like that. Dad also suggested that Nora know. I understood and agreed. Both Mom and Dad assured me that everything would be fine and that they were by my side along with Nora. Their kind words and smiles made me so relieved and happy that I ended up crying. When I saw this, my parents laughed, and my heart felt warm that night. They answered it. To Nora, he told me it's wonderful that you have parents who support you so much, and remember that you have me too. I looked at the stars and felt comforted. After thinking about it a little more, I decided to go back home. That meant going back to my parents' house since it's quite close. To go to work from there, I thought it would be better for my mental well-being to be away from a house full of painful memories. Since I was the one who had the rental contract, I took care of canceling it and sent Jackson's things to his parents' house on the day of the move. I managed the forwarding of the mail at the post office and completed the move without problems. I said goodbye to the landlord with a smile. I left on good terms at my parents' house. I settled in and returned to work. My colleagues had worried, but now I could honestly tell them that it was fine with a smile. My boss reminded me not to try too hard, which made me appreciate my workplace even more. A few months later, I came home. When I arrived, my mother was very serious. She told me we had to talk and told me he asked me to go to the living room after changing from his expression. I sensed that something was wrong after changing. I went to the living room where my parents were sitting, looking perplexed at a letter I sat in front of them, and they showed me the letter. It was an invitation to a wedding, but which one could be the problem? I asked if I could see it, and my father said yes. When I looked at it, I saw that it was from Sion. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. They registered a forwarding address. Because they move, right? My dad asked. Yes, that's right. No wonder. My parents, they seemed worried, but surprisingly, I felt calm. If this had happened before, I would have been very surprised. But now I just felt disgusted. Are you okay? My mother asked, worried. Dad was also looking at me. I'm better than I expected. I just feel disgusted. My weak point is how far they wanted to go to insult me, although, be my daughter. This is too much for me, she told me. I'm glad that Gianna is not as surprised as we thought. But this is still unacceptable. I could see that my parents were angry because of me. I thank my parents for defending me. The invitation was addressed to me. I asked, feeling insecure, and my parents looked at me with determination. Mom and I will go, so show them what hell is like. It was disturbing to see my parents, normally so kind, so angry, but the invitation is addressed to me, I pointed out. Well, they were the bride's parents. It would be bad manners not to attend. My father didn't reason. Exactly what our daughter's flight is, we're looking forward to it, Mom said with a smile. But her eyes didn't match her expression, which made me nervous. Dad ignored my concerns and continued getting ready. I hope she's okay. I heard a car stop, so I went to check if they had called a taxi, but instead, I found Nora getting out of a car that looked familiar. Nora, what are you doing here? I asked, surprised when I opened the door. She was gorgeous in her party dress. Good morning, Nora. Your father and mother are ready, she asked, ignoring my question. Wait, I'm going to the ode too. She was surprised when my parents came out. I asked them what was happening. It turned out that one of Jackson's relatives was a friend of Nora's. When they found out about the situation, they invited her to attend as the girlfriend of their relative. My parents did not object. In fact, they seemed enthusiastic about the idea of going together, while I thought about what they were up to. Nora told me I can't sit idly by after what has happened to Gianna. Despite the anxiety, I accepted. So my parents and Nora left together to the venue in a car. I thought about joining them, but Nora seemed to sense my doubts and told me, if you want to see it, I can show it to you through a video call. So I stayed at home and trusted them, but I got curious and contacted Nora for a video call when my parents and Nora arrived at the venue and headed to the reception. Nora was on the guest list thanks to the relatives from Jackson, but my parents were not on the list, as they were not officially invited. The receptionist went to check their names, and it was then that Eliana appeared. Eliana was surprised to see my parents and could not hide her confusion. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "Well, we are the parents," my parents responded. "It seems like there's a mistake. We didn't receive an invitation," they explained, which made me come out with a smile. Actually, the invitation was for Gianna. Yes, we were surprised when Gianna told us. We had no idea about the wedding like Gianna. I couldn't come today because of work. We came. It's okay to invite Gianna, but you should have sent one to us too. It wouldn't look good without the bride's parents, right? My father pointed out, mentioning the lack of invitation twice, although he couldn't see my parents' expressions. Through Nora's video call, I could imagine the scene in my mind. "Yes, I am your daughter after all. Of course you will be happy." She seemed to really believe that my parents had come for her. "I thought she was delirious," you murmured inside. Then she appeared, and she started to pale to see my parents calm. And they have come to celebrate with us. They must really love me, especially since Gianna is like that. Eliana reassured Jackson, who seemed relieved and greeted my parents with a smile. Jackson's parents also joined, and the atmosphere became friendly and warm. Upon seeing my former in-laws chatting happily, the memory of having been lovingly cared for by them hurt me a little. I wondered if they were only nice to me because I was their son's wife, which shocked me a little. Maybe it was really the right decision not to go, I murmured, and the dinner changed to the ceremony and then to the reception. At the reception, Eliana and Jackson made a happy entrance. Nora asked me from time to time if I was okay, but surprisingly, I was okay. I answered yes, and what's more, I wasn't worried about my phone's battery, but she assured me that she had a well-prepared portable charger. Indeed, when it came time to read the letter of thanks to the parents, Eliana started to get scared because she didn't expect her parents to come. When they saw this, my parents asked the microphone to the master of ceremonies. We were not supposed to come today, so it is understandable that Eliana was not prepared as a surprise from us to you, my father announced. That he wanted to convey a message to our daughter. The auditorium came out. It was already in applause. It seemed relieved by the salvation and smiled, applauding exaggeratedly. Dad, I am very happy. His exaggerated gratitude was annoying. I continued watching restlessly. Then my father did something incredible with a smile. Our surprise for you is this, he announced. And suddenly the doors of the reception room opened, revealing several men standing, all with indignant faces. I watched the scene, wondering what would happen next. She turned pale. Our Eliana is so charming that she has received the affection of many men. The kind Eliana has responded to all these feelings, making her a source of pride, and today, these gentlemen wanted to give us a prize. So we brought them here, my father initiated, which led to the men storming the stage, expressing their anger. She tried to escape, but was faced with accusations. Like, what do you mean? Are you going to marry another? How much do you think I have spent on you? Give me back the money I lent you. Eliana turned pale and almost cried when she saw this. Nora commented coldly, "Wow," while I was stunned. Jackson confronted Eliana to ask her what was going on, and she was too shocked and nervous to answer. Then my mother picked up the microphone and started talking. Guess we have another surprise. As my husband mentioned before, our daughter Eliana is very popular, even with other women. When Mom said this, a lot of women in the audience stood up. We invited those who wanted to meet Eliana. After Mom spoke, the woman approached Eliana suddenly. Another person grabbed the microphone and shouted, "She stole my man, and now you are trying to make her happy. Give me money for cheating on my husband. You disappeared as soon as I lent you money. Give me back everything." Turned back chaotic, the reception room went from noisy to really chaotic. I bet the other guests were shocked but seemed more upset than surprised. It was scary to see my parents smiling in the middle of all this madness, and I realized that was the kind of reputation that I had. My sister, in the middle of all the chaos, someone else picked up the microphone. It's really nice to see such a lovely person become the wife of our children. Surprisingly, it was my ex-mother-in-law who spoke. Unexpectedly, I was perplexed, wondering what she meant. She continued, "Maybe not as great as the surprise that Eliana's parents have prepared, but we also have something special for you." Jackson seemed surprised by his mother's words. "What do you mean, Mom? It's not what is happening." But his attempt to calm things down was ignored by my father-in-law, who took the microphone. "First, we want to thank Eliana's parents for their surprise. It turns out that I am a business owner, and we have decided to name Jackson as my successor. That is our surprise for you." "What? What is happening?" Eliana and Jackson were shocked. He remembered hearing that Jackson was prepared to take over his father's business during his marriage. So his father's announcement was surprising. "What are you saying, Dad? You have made your own decisions, deceived by your own will. You got divorced by your own will, and you remarried of your own free will. Someone who can make such good decisions should start his own business, instead of taking over mine. Don't decide on your own. You said I was the successor, and he seemed scared. We were talking seriously. You already are doing very well on your own. Use your judgment to live your life. From now on, with him by your side, responded his father. I couldn't be more proud to have a son capable of making such independent decisions. I was shocked. My ex-in-laws seemed to laugh along with my father, but their eyes didn't match their smiles. They seemed quite angry. Nora found the situation funny. They deserve it. I can barely contain my laughter. I was left speechless, and Nora updated me on what had happened while I was away. My ex-in-laws came to apologize. They actually considered me and my parents as part of their family. They had teamed up with my parents to plan this surprise retaliation. Nora had been in contact with my parents and had also heard the story from Jackson's relatives, so I knew it all when I heard it. I cried when I realized that I had so many people supporting me. You are not alone, Gianna. There are a lot of people who care about you, said Nora, trying to hold back the tears. How can we stay silent when someone we love is suffering? Yes, I cried, unable to speak properly, limiting myself kindly through the screen. Meanwhile, the chaos continued in the venue, with the staff trying to calm the disastrous situation. Then, a man stood up and walked towards the stage. He stood in front of him, who fell. After saying something to the man, he returned to his seat. What did that man say? I couldn't understand him from so far away, unless he was using a microphone. Maybe I should go ask him directly. Nora suggested and walked towards the man with her phone. Excuse me, she said as she walked away. I approached, and the man turned around. I was surprised, Uncle. He was actually my father's brother. My uncle. Nora showed him the screen, and when he saw me, my uncle seemed surprised and very happy. Gianna, you're fine. I found out from your father what happened today. It must have been hard. Thank you for worrying about me, but I'm fine. By the way, what did you say to him a moment ago? Oh, I told him that since I run this hotel, I'll ask for compensation for the damage. The reception hall is a disaster because of the bride and groom, my uncle explained. Both Nora and I understood when we heard his words. That's why I wasn't so pale. After chatting with my uncle for a while, I felt a little more hopeful. Trying to see him through the camera was difficult because of the crowd around him. This wedding had been stopped, turned into anything but a celebration. Looking around, I noticed many leaving, including some colleagues from Jackson whom I recognized, looking bewildered as they left. I thought, well, that makes sense. I felt somewhat relieved. The wedding ended in disaster with Eliana, and Jackson exhausted and pale at the end. And now the bride and groom are leaving, announced the master of ceremonies. But by then, most of the guests had already left, and only our parents, ex-in-laws, Nora, and some relatives were left to applaud. When my parents returned home, I went up to greet them. To my surprise, Nora and Jackson's parents were with them. I was a little surprised, but I bowed to my former in-laws. I'm sorry for not being in touch. I'm sorry for how our marriage ended despite your kindness, I apologized, feeling guilty for not having approached them after the divorce. My ex-in-laws, with their eyes on me, put their hands on my shoulders. We should be the ones to apologize, they said, but I insisted that it was not necessary and thanked them for their attention during the marriage. Afterwards, we all sat down, had tea, and chatted pleasantly, expressing gratitude for the events of the ode and saying goodbye on good terms. I felt that I had finally closed the matter, and I felt rejuvenated. A few days later, I received assault on my phone while working. I had forgotten to block her, But when I found out, it was a barrage of complaints. You ruined our home. Take responsibility. You have told our parents you are jealous. Stop blaming me for your unhappiness, loser. Eliana's message flashed on my phone. I sighed and turned to Nora, who was at the next table. Next, to claim alimony for the affair. She has practically given me all the evidence, I muttered, not tired of everything. I decided to hire a lawyer to claim alimony. I saved all the messages and images that Eliana sent me and replied to her, thanking her for providing me with evidence of the affair. A lawyer will contact you, so please stop contacting me directly. I texted Eliana. She got scared. What are you doing? Stop doing it. She started deleting the messages and images she had sent. When I told her I had saved all the evidence, she got scared even more and started apologizing. I'm sorry. It was all a lie. I'll leave it alone. There's no harm in it. I won't say anything bad ever again. Please don't make me pay alimony. I already have debts. That's not my problem. I don't want Jackson and do whatever you really want. Maybe it's good that you took him. I don't need a man who cheats, and in the end, you protected me. Thank you, little sister, I replied, before cutting off contact after blocking Eliana. She tried to contact me from other accounts, which I also blocked. I quickly consulted with the lawyer to which they had referred me, and they acted quickly when receiving the evidence. Shortly after, I started receiving messages from Jackson, saying that things were not going well with Eliana. He sent me creepy messages like a love-struck Romeo that I ignored and blocked when he tried to contact me through the house my parents took care of. Apparently, he got scared and didn't contact me again. Later, the lawyer informed me that Jackson and Eliana had agreed to pay alimony. They tried to resist using Eliana's usual complaint tactics, but that didn't work out with a lawyer. When they realized they had no chance, Jackson, who initially resisted, seemed defeated and pale after learning that Eliana had provided a lot of evidence against him. Despite feeling bitter about being harassed by such immature individuals, now I'm just grateful for the many people who supported me. Eliana and Jackson ended up divorced, and Eliana, with no one else to turn to, contacted our house once. But my parents issued a statement of distancing, hung up the phone, crying. Jackson, who was rumored about the wedding, found it uncomfortable at work and ended up quitting, unable to return home. Now, he manages part-time jobs. Meanwhile, I received a promotion at work thanks to my excellent performance. I also started a relationship with someone I met in my department, thinking about the future. Nora also connects with one of Y's relatives, and we often share our love stories. Next month, as a celebration, my parents, Nora, even my ex-in-laws, we are planning a trip together to the hot springs. Despite having hit rock bottom, I feel happier than ever.